Right. Welcome everyone to another episode of FitFam. As always, this is Miss Natural Olympia Hilary.
And this is Doug, the Formulator.
And so gonna be a fun episode this time.
It is. It's a little different. I think sometime we need to just film all the things that we're talking about before the camera starts rolling. So I think people would be.
They don't care.
I think it's funny. People like to laugh, Doug. Or they like to do what you're doing right now, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so irritated. Was that your irritated face?
No, I was happy. We were talking also about like one of our new things that we're super excited about, but we're not ready to launch, but maybe.
But they were sitting in here, and so I thought, why not give a little teaser?
Oh.
Like, look at Doug's newest venture. What is one thing that Doug loves so much? Tortilla chips. And his biggest thing is that he can never find baked tortilla chips. So I think our next big thing is getting in the tortilla chip.
Boom. The tortilla chip
business.
Well, it's always been like my Achilles heel, my kryptonite, right? Because I've so loved chips and salsa. But we did find a place. I know. Pavlov's dog. We did find a place in Mexico that make the most awesome corn and prickly pear baked tortilla chips. So they're high in fiber, right? Low in fat, really low in fat. 1 gram per 10 chips, when most chips are 1 gram per chip. Anyways, we're going to be...
And they're really, really good.
Yeah, and they'll be on the market soon. So nice teaser.
Thanks.
Good
I'm
job.
excited about it. Okay, so what are we talking about today?
This is really cool. I actually saw a lady on social media named Cody Sanchez talk about this framework, and she did give credit to the NBA for it, but it's a framework that's used to develop championship teams, and it was used for years with some of the teams that I worked with. Mainly the two people were Pat Riley that really used this framework, and Coach Popovich. So the Miami Heat, who won multiple championships, and the Spurs when we were working with them. And it was really interesting to look at this framework and then think, wow, you can apply it to families and business and life, not just building a championship team. And so it goes back, just the little history. I like the history behind it. It goes back to a really cool year, 1965. What happened that year?
Well, I know I wasn't born yet, because that'd be a long
time. So 1965, best year to be alive. There was a guy named Bruce Tuckman, and Bruce Tuckman developed this framework on, he noticed that there's this thing that happens, this like series of events that go through these cycles that is gone through when there's a championship team, especially one that wins for multiple years. And so he came up with this framework, and then, like I said, later on in the 90s and that, some of the coaches picked up on it, and that's how they built their teams into championship teams. And so it's not just for those of you that are coaches, it's for everyone, because like I mentioned, we can apply this to any area of life. So let's go through that framework.
Well, and what's the most important team? The most important team is the family team.
It's the family.
Right? So,
and I think it can easily be applied to the family. Yeah. And so, awesome. So now there's 4 steps.
But so team, we're talking team, family, business, all of it, right?
Yeah, business. Absolutely. I think any of those things. So even like specific goals, like your financial goals, right? And your work itself, the family. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. So do you want me to go through them?
Why don't we just speak the four, and then we'll go through them individually.
Okay. So forming, storming, norming, like what you're doing there, performing.
Boom. And so why don't we talk about forming first? I think that's kind of the concept that really is important. You have to have the goal.
Okay. So forming is basically just the coming together for the common goal, right?
Right. So let's give some examples for the teams. It's like, okay, we want to win the state championship or the world championship. That's an easy thing. And we want to assemble a team who's with us type thing. But you can apply that same who's with us in other areas.
Yeah. So like family goals, financial goals for family, or trip goals, right?
Yeah, like trip goals is a good one. I think even family goals, I know for us, how do we want our children raised? What are the principles we want? What's the end result we want? We want them to be happy. We want them to be successful, whatever they chose, whatever their heart desired. And so we wanted to have a framework in place, a system to help them accomplish that. And I think
And
that
progression. We wanted constant progression.
constant progression. And so in order to get that, you had to form the goal first. So family, this is what we're wanting to accomplish, or financial, this is the amount of money we want to earn as a couple, or a business. Here's what we want the business to accomplish. So first of all, find that, form that goal, and recruit your team. I think that's the part that, family, easy recruiting, right? Type thing. But in business or anything else financially, you have to recruit that team. So it kind of comes back to that whole 5 people you hang around thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the right people when you're forming that team, and realize if you don't or not. And that's the forming.
Okay. So forming, so basically the understanding of the goal in general and who it would take to
Mhm.
accomplish, right? Is
Yep.
that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And then storming. So clashes happen and can cause downfall. Maybe the family doesn't all agree on the roles that everybody has to play,
That
or
happens
in a
lots
team,
of times.
right? Right? In a team, especially.
Yeah.
Think about like the clash between like Shaq and Kobe, right?
Yeah.
There was like this constant, who's the star, and how do you play in a way to highlight somebody else's strengths while not diminishing your strengths. So that can be
That could be a big deal. And you can
tricky.
see that with all the championship teams, to kind of keep that as the center of our framework here as we're talking. And even the teams that we worked with, you had, big players, David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and those people, and they all had, for a while, it was chaos. They were storming, right? Everyone wanted to get this done and do it their way. In the family, everyone wants, okay, that's a great goal, but we want to do it this way, especially teenagers. And it's chaos. And some people give up on their goal because they're going through the storm. I love that phase of it, but it's critical. You have to go through storm. You have to go through conflict. And I think that we don't teach that and address it enough, that a part of this is going to be some storms, and
Yeah.
it's part of the process. Everything is for our good. And it can get crazy. So think of that in every area. You mentioned the family. Think of it in business. Man, felt it in business where it's just, not everyone's on the same page.
Well, and I think in business especially, it's important that everyone is in the right seat, right? In business,
Yeah,
everybody has their strengths, and you want to make sure they're where their strengths can really assist everybody else.
Absolutely. And then finance, sometimes if we say, well, our goal is to save X amount of money, or to create, this much income because of the lifestyle we want to live.
And when someone buys cars a lot,
Yeah,
that's
that
would make it
really
harder.
Yeah,
to
it would make it tougher, and purses and things like that. It does. It's really crazy. So,
You should have said shoes.
so shoes. I'm sorry, I can keep going on that. Right, cars, or anyway. But I think that even within that, then it's the knowledge of knowing, like, if you're on the financial goal of what is the end goal and what
Mhm.
sacrifices are we willing, and there's going to be that conflict, the storms of, are we outside of what we're wanting to accomplish? And that's an important place. So we
Yeah.
formed the goal, we stormed the court, right? We
Yeah.
had those issues,
Yeah.
right? That type thing is
And I think something big to understand during that storming situation is that, like you said, sometimes it feels like chaos, because it is chaos, because you're trying to tame and become one, right?
Right.
But I think one of the key words that you just said was sacrifice. And I think oftentimes we don't address the need for sacrifice for the overall good. Right? Anytime we're trying to accomplish any goal, if somebody's trying to get their master's, and the sacrifice that they will have to, spend a little bit of less time with the family, and somebody else will have to pick up the slack so that mom can finish schooling. I've seen that in my brother's family, and everybody's had to pick up the slack, and because their mom, she's going to school to become a teacher, and now she's teaching and finishing school, and so the kids all have new and different jobs, and my brother also has, stepped in a different way because she's busy doing these other things, but it's for the overall good of the family. So sacrifices are important for all of us as a team and individually to accomplish whatever goals that we're trying to set out for ourselves, right?
Absolutely. And I think, one of our mentors in that was looking at creating another business, I remember him saying, I have to take a look and say, what am I willing to sacrifice to make this a reality? And am I willing to really sacrifice it, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
And so I think anytime we want to accomplish anything, that should be one of the first things we ask ourselves is what am I willing to sacrifice to accomplish this goal and realize what it's going to take? And are you okay with it? If
Yeah.
not, then change the goal. But you have to be okay with it up front, not in the heat of the moment. And
But
that's where the
also,
stormings happen.
yeah, but also realizing that in the sacrifice there can be great joy. You know, like for them, my brother's taken over a lot of the cooking, but he loves to cook. He still has his, full-time job, and he's also a guide, and so he has other tasks, but so now he's just adding something that he truly does love. And so there can be joy in sacrifice as well.
Absolutely.
And there should be.
And there should be. And I think that comes true to back to even the sport, even like with bodybuilding or even for all of us, non-professional athletes that are just doing things to improve our health and longevity is right now, I realize that I'm going to have to sacrifice an hour or two a day. There's going to be some pain in the weightlifting. There's going to be some pain of staying away from certain foods, but it's for the greater good. And I'm okay with those sacrifices. I'm willing to sacrifice those things to be more present, to live longer, to be with my grandkids, for us to be able to enjoy life at a higher level. But that's part of the storming, going through that. But the more you can set that forming
And figuring
better.
out what it is and all that, right? That's part of the storming, like figuring out where the sacrifices are going to come from.
Absolutely.
All of that.
And going back to the forming, the stronger the why. So really good.
So norming.
All right. Forming, storming, and then norming.
Consistency and discipline creates growth and some of the noticeable successes. So staying in it, and then as you get into the sacrifices and the direction, takes a minute, but things start to get in the flow and you come into big mo, right?
Yeah, that's it right there. And I think that's really key. The norming is a great place, but it's also a dangerous place. I remember very specifically bringing this back to what these principles are known for, mainly from the NBA. I remember when the San Antonio Spurs were good, but they weren't great. And they had gone through, he had set up a new offense for them. He formed the right team, brought all the people together, and they went through the storming phase. A couple of people left, and it was crazy, chaotic. And then they started having success, and they were making the playoffs, but that was about it. But they were getting better, and you could see it happening. And the key with the norming is not only being consistent and disciplined, but holding it together when things become nice. Like, oh, I'm making more money. Business is heading the right way. I don't have to put in as much time. My health's improving. I can cheat a little bit, that type of thing, instead of staying in it to win it. And so norming is great, but also can be very, very dangerous. I think we see more people get to this phase than any other, because people that come to us are, they have goals and they're committed, but they get there and they don't keep pushing.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's that moment where you've made enough progress that it's a drastic progress from where you were, and so it's like you feel entitled to certain things, right? I know I am very guilty of that when it comes to time to start sacrificing again on prep with food. I sometimes I'll fudge and be like, no, my workouts are gnarly. I'm good. I get to eat this and that, but it's the difference, right? It's the consistency of those small things that make a big difference.
Big difference. So now we've gone through the forming, the storming, the norming. And if we've stayed in the norming and we've stayed through that nice little run and stayed super consistent, when we didn't feel we had to, that's when we get to performing.
Yeah, so structured process comes together synergistically because the goal was high enough, and then you stayed consistent, focusing on the end goal, and then didn't lower the level of success. So,
yeah, I think that's really the key, and very few people hit that. You talked about Big Mo, the flow, and you think of momentum. We hit areas in that, whether it be with your health, because that happens. A client just left right now that hit Big Mo, all of a sudden just their metabolism kicked in. They're able to eat more calories and they're still staying lean. They're doing that, but they paid the price for a few years. And it was really cool to see that in business, all of a sudden things taken off and you're running the same systems, but it's just growing. Your financial goals are being met, and it's compounding at a higher rate. The family's coming together and you're seeing the fruits of the labors. All of that happens only after you formed, stored, normed, and then you finally get the performance. It's in that flow state, and that's when the championship happens. The first year the Spurs won, and then he won, and then all of a sudden both of them would win multiple championships. I think like in 10 years there was like 7 championships that were won by those teams that we worked with, and it's because they went through that process and they stayed there. They stayed in that performing high
Mm-hmm.
flow state, and that's why we always talk about. I loved Hillary's second and third win at Olympia, probably even more than the first, because it's hard to repeat. It's hard to stay in performance mode once you've had that high level of success.
Yeah, what's the quote? Nothing fails like success.
Nothing feels like success. And so I think it's important to really have everyone look at this and say, how can I apply this to the things that are most important right now in my life? Maybe health is most important in your life. Things have happened. Maybe it's a family unit coming together. Maybe it's business. Maybe it's your finances that need help. Whatever it is, and think through that process. Make sure your goal's strong enough, right? You're forming.
Yeah. Yeah. It needs to be a driving force. Like I always like to think of it like what does it look like and feel like when I get it? What does that look like? What does it feel like? Because if that's not strong enough, then it just doesn't carry you through. You've got to be able to envision it as if it's there, as if you've got it, because there's something about that will hold you accountable.
Absolutely. And then the principal take home with the storming is, for me, it's like, look at everything that happens to you as for your benefit. If you truly set the high goal when you were forming and brought your team together, then you should have the faith to say, whatever happens, then I can make it through it. I can make it through the storm, and realize that the end goal is the result that you're wanting, but you don't get to decide 100% the path. Right?
And there's disruption that comes for a reason.
Yes.
Because it holds you stronger to your commitment. If you can get through the disruption, if you can get through the storm, you're unstoppable. And it's there. It is created almost innately to help you know just how committed you are.
Absolutely. And I think for a lot of us, I know I do better in storms. Like if it's stormy, let's go, right? Give me a challenge, let's go. And for a lot of people that way, and I think almost everyone, if your back's against the wall so much, especially as moms and stuff, the mother bear comes out. We can handle those things.
That's true.
It's when it becomes complacent, it's when it becomes norm, and we're having that success. So again, we've got the forming and storming, but don't lose sight of the critical nature of once you start getting some movement, you feel comfortable in your home.
Successes are starting to come.
Yeah. That's when you need to double down on the overall vision, what you're trying to accomplish, and stay even more committed. You use the perfect word. Feel entitled to get off of this framework that you put in place. That's such the key. And I think that's where a lot of people in life are, is, I have a good life, but I have really great levels of health. I don't have really great levels of the finances I truly want to have the freedom for my family. I truly don't have the highest levels, right, of family values and strength and togetherness. And so I love being strong through the norm.
Yep. Love it. And then perform.
That's it. So what's probably the thing with perform?
Well, what's funny about performing is when we were watching a little bit of television before we went to bed last night, and it's the Olympic trials.
Love that.
Right? Yeah. And so he's talking about, like, right now, the trials are the tough part. And then you get to the Olympics and you just got to stay in the flow. And I think that's part of performing. Like, once you've done like all of the hard work, and we talk about that too, when it comes time to step on stage, you've done all the work, and now it's time to stay into the flow and just allow what your body and your mind naturally know what comes next to happen, instead of getting in your head and disrupting it when you don't need to.
Yeah, and that was cool. They were sitting in these chairs at ESPN at the end of the
Trials.
The trials, right? And they were the 3 fastest men in America. And that was so cool. And they're like, this was the tough part. You're so right. That was so powerful. And it is true. And the tough part is a lot of time that norming, right before the big performance, the Olympics. So hopefully that you all can take that from a standpoint of something that you can apply in any area of your life, the forming, storming, norming, performing. And what's funny is Bruce Tuckman years later added a 5th one, and he called it the adjourning and mourning state. And the only reason is when these dynasties fell, some of them retired, some of them, they went back into the storming state and didn't get out of it. They brought new players in and they couldn't get past that. And the dynasty fell. And you'll see that in life too, is happens with businesses, happens in finances, with families. And it's just, can we hold that performing state, stay in that flow? And when there's storming, go back through that cycle again. Think about your goals, make sure you have the right people around you, and stay strong. And then you'll be able to have that consistency for life. So everyone, hope that helps you. Let us know in the comments what you think, and we'd be glad to tell you a little bit about the chips on another episode.
We'll eat them.
As always, this is Miss Natural Olympia Hilary.
And this is Doug, the Formulator.